If your raised bed vegetables never quite thrive, no matter what you plant in them, the problem usually isn't your plants. It's decisions that were already made before a single seed went in, back when the bed itself was being built and filled. After years of growing almost exclusively in raised beds, I've made most of these mistakes myself, and I've watched other gardeners make them too. Today, I'm walking you through 7 raised bed mistakes to avoid before you ever set one up, so you can start this season without repeating them. Welcome back to Ageless Garden. Let's get into it. Mistake 1, making your bed too long or too wide. My favorite dimensions are 4 feet wide by 8 feet long. That width means you can reach into the center from either side without straining, and that length keeps you from having to walk all the way around a bed every time you need the other side, which becomes a real annoyance with anything much longer, say 20 feet. A 4x8 bed also saves money and cuts down on waste. 3 8-foot pieces of lumber build the whole thing. One gets cut in half for the 2 end pieces, and the other 2 become the sides.
This isn't technically about the bed itself, but it matters just as much. The paths between your beds. Mine run a little over 2 feet wide, roughly the space I need to turn sideways or kneel comfortably without twisting into an awkward position. Before you finalize your layout, actually sit down between where your beds will go and test how much room you really need. Mistake 2, making your bed too shallow. This depends a lot on your own comfort and what's underneath the bed. If bending over is difficult for you, building up to 2 or 3 feet tall might be worth it. If you've got decent soil underneath, even a 6-inch tall bed works fine, since most vegetables only need about a foot of root depth total, and the native soil beneath can provide the rest. But if you're building over concrete or another hard surface, you'll need 12 to 14 inches of depth in the bed itself, since there's no soil underneath to make up the difference. In my case, gophers are a real problem here. So my original beds were built 6 inches tall with hardware cloth underneath to keep them out. That wire does its job well and lasts for years, and I'd recommend it to anyone dealing with gophers. But it comes with trade-offs. You can't grow long carrots or parsnips in a shallow bed like that, any shorter varieties. And trying to pound a teepee trellis stake in for beans doesn't go deep enough. Mine actually blew over in the wind.
So on the beds I built more recently to expand the garden, I doubled the height to 12 inches, just 2 2x6 boards stacked on top of each other. One of the advantages of simple framed raised beds is that you can expand them anytime. I'm planning to eventually add another 2x6 to all my older beds to bring them up to that same 12-inch depth. It's an easy upgrade. Just stack the boards, screw into a piece of scrap wood in each corner, and add a support piece along the middle of each side to keep the boards from bowing outward. Mistake 3, building your bed out of the wrong material. There isn't really a lot of genuinely wrong material, and you don't even need material at all. You can simply mound soil 6 to 12 inches high and plant directly into that, and you'll still get the drainage benefits of a raised bed without spending anything on materials. If you do want defined edges for a neater look, wood is the cheapest route. Douglas fir works well, and redwood or cedar cost a bit more up front but tend to last longer. What you want to avoid is compressed or treated lumber. It's not treated with arsenic the way it used to be, but it's often treated with a copper-based preservative that isn't organic approved. Whether or not that leaches into your vegetables isn't fully clear, but it's simple enough to just replace untreated wood every 6 or 7 years and stay on the safe side. Fabric raised beds are another strong option. They root prune naturally. As roots reach the fabric edge, they sense the oxygen coming through it and split off, rather than circling and becoming pot-bound the way they would in a solid container. That splitting encourages a much denser, healthier root system, similar to how pinching a plant back encourages more branching above ground. Fabric beds are genuinely productive too. 2 4x4 fabric beds of sweet potatoes produced around 86 pounds in a single season.
And finally, metal raised beds. These come in a wide range of designs and heights and will outlast almost any other material, though they're also the most expensive option up front. Now it's time to fill the bed, and mistake 4 is filling it with the wrong growing medium. This is where most of your budget goes, and it's exactly where people tend to cut corners, but it's actually the most important part of getting the real benefits of a raised bed. mainly good drainage and loose, uncompacted soil. You want a light, fluffy texture you can sink your hands into easily, something you'd never get from digging straight into the ground. That's exactly why you should avoid filling a raised bed with regular garden soil, even if you've got plenty sitting around. It compacts differently once it's in a raised structure, and that holds true even for decent loam, let alone clay, which won't drain at all, or pure sand, which won't hold any water. Use a quality potting soil or raised bed mix instead. If there's a mushroom farm near you, it's worth checking whether they give away mushroom compost. Often they do. You just handle the transport and shoveling yourself. If you're filling a taller bed, say 3 feet, cost can add up fast, but you only actually need that good potting mix in the top 12 inches. Below that, you can fill with organic material that will break down over time. Large branches and limbs at the bottom, smaller branches above that, then twigs, then leaves, getting progressively finer as you go up. Over a couple of years, that layer breaks down into good soil throughout the bed. Just expect some settling each year with this method, which you'll need to top up anyway. One thing to avoid entirely, grass clippings. They'll produce a genuinely unpleasant sewage-like smell every time you water for a couple of months.
Mistake 5. Not refreshing the soil. No matter how you filled your bed, branches and leaves or straight compost, you'll lose some volume every year to erosion, settling, and soil pulled out along with roots when you remove old plants. Each spring, or fall, or both, add another inch or two of good compost or potting mix to the top without mixing it in. This keeps your root zone at the right depth, creates a physical barrier over whatever disease spores or pathogens were present the previous season, and reintroduces fresh organic matter for the beneficial bacteria and worms to work into the soil. Mistake 6. Not mulching. Mulch suppresses weeds and holds moisture in the soil, which matters enormously in a dry climate. But even just cutting down on a summer's worth of weeding makes it worthwhile anywhere. If you're using drip irrigation, laying mulch over the lines keeps that moisture from ever reaching sunlight or evaporating. It goes straight into the soil and stays there. Pull mulch back in an unmulched section for comparison, and you'll usually see the difference in soil moisture immediately. When you plant, move the mulch aside, plant directly into the soil, then put the mulch back around the base. Never bury mulch into the soil itself, since it will pull nitrogen out of the soil as it breaks down, competing with your plants for it. And if slugs or snails are a problem where you garden, avoid mulching with straw or pine needles. They create excellent hiding spots. I learned that one the hard way, after a wet winter with straw mulch turned into a serious slug and snail infestation. Mistake 7. Not protecting your beds over winter. This is the one gardeners skip most often. By fall, everyone's tired and ready to be done until spring, but it's a real mistake. In cold, icy climates, you need to protect the soil itself. In mild but rainy climates, you need to protect against erosion. A thick layer of mulch over winter handles a lot of this on its own.
Cover crops are another strong option. A living green blanket over your beds that holds soil in place with its root system. And if it freezes and dies back, it breaks down into the soil like a natural green manure. In colder climates, something like winter rye handles the cold well. Crimson clover and hairy vetch are other common choices. These can act like weeds if your winters aren't cold enough to kill them off, but the fix is simple. As soon as you see flower buds forming, mow the cover crop down before it goes to seed, and leave the cuttings right on the surface to break down into the soil. That's 7 raised bed mistakes to watch for before you ever get your bed set up this season. If this helped, subscribe to Ageless Garden for more practical garden guides every week. And drop a comment letting me know which of these mistakes you've made yourself. I read every one. See you in the next one.